What's up, Raptor fans? It's me again, A-Dubs. I'm here to talk about the Knicks game. The Raptors lost this game 116-94. What a whopping, and it's the second loss in a row. After the beautiful 9-game winning streak, the Raptors have lost 2 games. I know what you're gonna say. What happened to the East Coast Bullies? What happened? What happened to the East Coast Bullies? Well, it looks like they're a little tired. I don't know. On the second half of a back-to-back with no Jakob Poeltl, no RJ Barrett, of course, and the other team, the Knicks, they were without OG Anunoby, our old championship alumni player. He's out with a hamstring injury. You know, OG actually didn't play through the playoffs in the championship season. He was out, but he actually wasn't even out during the playoffs. He had recovered, but I guess they just didn't feel comfortable inserting him back into the lineup while everything was going so well. And it seems like they made the right choice, but unfortunately, OG didn't play throughout the 2018-2019 playoffs, and he still got a ring. He got a ring. He played during the season. This game was a pretty big heat check for the Raptors. They lost the game last night that was pretty close until the end, and we all knew this was going to be the second half of a back-to-back. Jakob Poeltl, sometime he's still resting on these back-to-backs, so him out, RJ out. It really didn't seem like we were going to be able to pull this one out on paper, but we still got to play the game and ended up losing in pretty rough fashion. The Knicks aren't a rival, but they could definitely be a playoff matchup. We got to take every game we play against them kind of seriously and take notes as to what may occur during a playoff series. So I'm just going to get into the matchups, but before I do, if you're watching this and you're liking what you see, please subscribe or follow on whatever platform you're watching on. And if you're enjoying it enough, light up the like button. So the matchups we'll be doing today are Emmanuel Quickley versus Jalen Brunson, Brandon Ingram versus Josh Hart, and Scotty Barnes versus Karl Anthony Towns, seeing that Scotty Barnes had to play center because Jakob Poeltl was out. So let's get straight into the first matchup, which would be Emmanuel Quickley versus Jalen Brunson. Quickley hit 7 of 14 shots for 19 points on 50% shooting. He hit 4 of 10 3-pointers, which is pretty darn good. 1 of 3 free throws, which is kind of weird. But anyway, he had no stocks and an assist to turnover ratio of 4-1, 8 assists and 2 turnovers. As usual, he didn't have that many turnovers, which is good. But a solid performance tonight just wasn't enough. Quickley had to do more tonight because there's just simply less people around, and Ingram is looking a little bit tired these days, coming off of his injury last season, and just in general getting back into game shape. It seems like these back-to-backs are wearing on him. 14 points for the second time on one leg of a back-to-back, and last night wasn't spectacularly better. Maybe I'm jumping ahead a bit to Ingram, but on a night like tonight where we're facing a point guard who is going to take a team effort to guard, Quickley has to make his presence known, especially on the offensive end, because we are shorthanded. And to be honest, I can't really blame him tonight. I can't blame him. 8 assists, 19 points. He did his job. Not bad shooting whatsoever. 40% from the 3-point line and 50% from the field overall. That's great. You can't blame him, but we want more. I mean, it's your old team. You got to have a little revenge game, but it didn't happen tonight. Hopefully it'll happen on December 9th, the next time that we play the Knicks. Moving on to Jalen Brunson, who hit 6 of 19 shots for 18 points on 31.5% shooting. Pretty terrible. I think we guarded him pretty well. He hit 1 3-pointer, 5 of 5 free throws, which helps. 6 rebounds, an assist to turnover ratio of 3.5. So a little worse than Quickley, but not much worse. So still pretty good. Overall, I do still have to give this matchup to Quickley. The plus minus is a drastic difference, but it's definitely imbalanced, meaning that Quickley sort of seemed like he wasn't very responsible for the 25 points that were put on the board. Quickley with a plus minus of only -8. Seems like he wasn't on the court for that much of the damage that was done when Brunson was on the court. Clearly, it's imbalanced. So I want to ask more from Quickley, but I can't really say that he did a bad job tonight. And the numbers speak for themselves. Some moments maybe you want to be more solid, but at the same time, it is a team effort. And when you get a solid performance, you get a solid performance. You can't really knock it. If other players performed, maybe it would have ended up different. The matchup goes too Quickley. And if you say I'm biased, I say I'm biased. So I'm biased. It's all good. We're moving on to the next matchup, which is going to be, whew, it's a big one. Brandon Ingram versus Josh Hart. Josh Hart represented tonight. My goodness. And Brandon Ingram looked a little bit tired, to be honest, to be perfectly honest tonight, which, you know, I'm not really mad at him. He's been doing his job so far. He came off injury and has just been playing great. So I'm not going to knock him for falling off for a couple games, but I will call it out for what it is because he did perform pretty poorly tonight, especially in the first quarter, the first half. He couldn't hit a shot, and he said it himself. So I'm sure he knows. I'm sure he wants to do better, and I'm sure he's gonna do better at some points. So to get into the numbers, Brandon Ingram hit 4 of 11 shots for only 14 points, 2 of 5 3-pointers. You know, not to say 14 points is that little, but for our main scorer, you want to get at least 20 points a night, and this is just under par, unfortunately. He shot pretty well from the 3-point line, but he had to hit a couple late because he missed a couple early. 2 of 5, and his field goal percentage was 36.4. He had 1 rebound and an assist to turnover ratio of 0.8. I think we could definitely blame some of those turnovers for the big deficit, because if you have 5 chances to score and you give them up for chances for the other team to score, you're gonna lose the game, man. 5 times, 1 player? That's a recipe for disaster, and it kind of was like that tonight, to be perfectly honest. His plus minus was a -22, and as you can tell, he was on the court a lot with Josh Hart, or at least for the equivalent amount of time to make those plus minuses balance out pretty well. Josh Hart hit 8 of 12 shots for 20 points on 66.7% shooting, 4 3-pointers, 12 rebounds, 7 assists, an assist to turnover ratio of 1.75, but 7 assists. When you're producing 20 points on 8 of 12 shooting, you could do a little turnovers because you've made up for it on the other side, and 12 rebounds with 5 of them being offensive rebounds is pretty big damage. It's 5 more possessions that your team might not have had. These little things are things that make teams win, and Josh Hart always does them well. Josh Hart also had 3 stocks, and I previously mentioned his plus minus of plus 24 almost perfectly mirrors Brandon Ingram's plus minus of -22. So it's pretty obvious. You're gonna say, is this your East Coast bully, A-Dubs? Is this your East Coast bully? And I'm gonna say, yeah, you know, eventually he's gonna be, but tonight the bully got beat down. Josh Hart really showed up tonight, and Ingram was not shooting the ball well and didn't perform well enough tonight. I'm gonna have to give this matchup to Josh Hart. I'm biased, but you can't say I'm totally biased because this one is clear and Brandon Ingram lost it. So let's move on to the last and final matchup of the night, which is gonna be Scotty Barnes versus Karl Anthony Towns. They are mismatched because Jakob Poeltl is out tonight and Scotty Barnes played a lot of the center position. He played it pretty well, but it really throws off the team chemistry when he has to step up and play that position because our power forward position is then not as strong. Scotty Barnes hit 7 of 17 shots for 18 points on 41% shooting. He did hit 4 3-pointers. His 3-point percentage was pretty good, 57%. When he got his open shots, he took them and hit a lot of them, which is pretty good. He also had 5 rebounds, 3 stocks, which were 2 blocks and 1 steal. His assist to turnover ratio wasn't too good because he had 3 turnovers, 4 assists and 3 turnovers, and it kind of just went along with how the rest of the game was, which the Knicks were playing well and the Raptors were playing a little bit lethargic and a bit out of sorts. Even displayed on one of the last plays of the game where Jalen Brunson basically pointed out that Colin Murray-Boyles was standing in the key for more than 3 seconds, and it's a rule of the game. It's a rule of the game. So I will do the same thing. It's just something that you got to be aware of. You got to get out of the key every 3 seconds. It's sort of weird, but at the same time, it's for a reason. So moving on to Karl Anthony Towns, who hit 8 of 15 shots for 53% shooting. He hit 1 of 4 3-pointers and had 8 rebounds, 2 assists, no stocks, an assist to turnover ratio of 0.5 because he had 4 turnovers. It seemed like Scotty was doing a pretty good job defending Karl Towns, even though he did get 22 points. The Knicks would have a size advantage on us with him moving up to the center position for the night. Scotty did play pretty well at the center position, which he does tend to do, but to be honest, we really want that to be sort of a last resort. We really play best as a team when Scotty's in his rightful position at power forward, and the plus minus misses did end up sort of balancing out just a 3-point difference. And even though this matchup is pretty even, I do have to give it as well to New York. If it's an even matchup, which this sort of is, I usually favor the winning team because the results of the matchup do pertain to the game, and what does it matter what you did unless your team got the W? So New York got the win in a decisive game, even though this matchup is pretty even. On paper, Karl Towns' contribution to the game obviously was a reason for some of the 22-point deficit that they put on the Raptors. Right away in this game, there were some pretty bad signs. We went down 34-17 early, and even though the Raptors were sort of catching up here and there, they got behind pretty fast, and it stayed that way for too long. They caught back up to about 4 points behind near the end of the second quarter, but by the end of the second quarter, it was a 10-point deficit again, which is okay. But when you're fighting to get there, you're on a second half of a back-to-back, you're missing 2 of your best players, including your center. It's gonna be tough, and unless your team is really resilient, really experienced, really polished, it's gonna be tough to make up that deficit against a team like the Knicks. The Knicks have been through things like that. They've been together for a certain amount of time where they've built that chemistry. They've had some playoff series. They were in the playoffs last season. They were definitely an underdog team, but they definitely earned some stripes last year in the playoffs. And this is the sort of team that we want to gain similar experience to and get to the point where we can handle our own in a game like this. So like I said, there were bad signs, but there were also some good signs. When they did get down, it was about a 24-point deficit in the first quarter, I think. By the end of the second quarter, the first half, they did bring it back down to 10, but still having it at 24 in the first place is pretty rough. Things like that do happen, but they haven't happened to the Raptors very recently, and that was a bad sign. And it ended up being a sign of things to come. Not having Pirtle and not having Barrett really hurt us at times where we needed scoring and we needed offensive rebounding. Well, defense rebounding for us, offensive rebounding for the other team, which they got a lot of. Mitchell Robinson came off the bench and he got 15 rebounds, 7 of them being offensive rebounds, and that's just way too much. That's 7 second chances at baskets that we could have just got the stop. We did get the stop, and then we ended up giving them back the ball and giving them a second chance. I also mentioned earlier Josh Hart. He also had 5 offensive rebounds. That's just way too many, and that has been a problem when Jakob has been out, so it's definitely something to keep an eye on. And there has been talk about getting another backup center. I love Colin Murray-Boyles and Mamu as our backup centers, but in order for them to be successful, they've got to be able to box out and not allow that many offensive rebounds so consistently. Tonight it was just a huge problem and definitely contributed to the loss. Miles McBride in the first quarter. How could I have forgotten to mention Miles McBride in the first quarter had a flamethrower attached to his arm, and he hit 5 field goals in the game, but 4 of those 5 field goals were 3-pointers in the first quarter. That's what put us behind, and we never caught back up from that point. Shout out to Miles McBride for flamethrowing us into our early good night and, you know, making it decisive, and we didn't have to think about it too much, didn't have to dwell on whether we were going to win or lose. We were missing Jakob Pirtle, we were missing RJ Barrett, and you flamethrowed us into our early 17-point lead, something like that. Thank you, no problem. We'll remember for next time. I think we're gonna start Jamal Shed and put him right on Miles McBride if he's starting, because that was nuts. I think other guys were hitting 3-pointers as well at the same time. It wasn't even much through the first quarter. I think it was about halfway through the first quarter. And this guy already had 4 3-pointers, and a couple other Knicks might have hit a couple too between there. It was really bad. But you win some, you lose some. The Raptors were bound to lose some eventually. I didn't really like that it was 2 in a row. Last night should definitely not have happened, but that's what happens when you're a little young and inexperienced, or at least still learning each other, and maybe getting a little fatigued, maybe getting a little complacent. But end of the day, they did lose the game yesterday, and it was one they should have won, and it makes this one so much more bitter because you feel like you shouldn't have lost until maybe tonight, or you would have maybe had a chance if you didn't have to go into overtime and waste a little bit more energy for absolutely no reason. reason other than to still lose. Anyways, Raptor fans, it's been a rough couple games, but I think we'll bounce back, especially against Portland. I didn't release the Hornets episode right after the game. I was out, I got in a little late, and I think I explained it in that video, but I still probably will be putting it out just before this one, so we will see how that goes tomorrow. Anyways, Raptor fans, I'm A-Dubs. You have a good one. The Raptors will bounce back. Don't worry about it. And it's early in the season. We're doing pretty well. We'll learn and we'll do better. Have a good one and see you after the next game. Peace out.